I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support. Hello! Good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back, wherever you are around the world, to another episode. Vacation edition. We're supposed to be on vacation. Clearly, we could not stay away. I ignored the dirts. I was able to stay away from the dirts, but Tim McMillan pulled me back in. So we're here. We're doing one show. And we come back officially on the 28th of April. So you guys, thank you so much for being patient, giving us the month off. I feel great. I'm so excited for this special edition episode. Thank you for being here. We are disgustingly close to 10,000 subscribers for the channel. Insane. That growth has basically happened in a year. So thank you to everyone out there, old subscribers, new subscribers, people who are thinking of subscribing. Hit that big, beautiful red subscribe button. Give it a shot. Give us a shot. Seems like most people like us. We do have a strong, avid following of people that absolutely hate us, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Ignore and move on. So we carry on. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all the tunes you hear on the show. Thank you so much to them. I want to say thank you to all of the members out there of YouTube. And we've got a new member, Travis Roberts. Thank you so much for becoming a member of the channel. If you want to, there's a green button down there. You can hit become a member of the show. Gives you little emojis as you are a member for a while before you get the ultimate dolphin emoji in the TikTok. I want to say thank you to everyone in the chat. Check out our links. We've got links to merch store, links to Patreon, links to Rather's channel, links for Tim McMillan, who's going to be here today talking to us. So go subscribe to all those people, support all of those folks. And yeah, that's it. Let's get started with today's show, shall we? Speaking of today's show, you can't do the show without Rather be squitting. I love how people,
it's good to be back.
I love how people are calling for me to fire you, and I don't pay you anything. Like
all I do is gather the hate.
All you do. I guess our currency is the hate. But hey, man, it's a good.
It is
currency.
what it is.
I feel like it trades high. You know, not quite the dollar, but we're close. Well, let's do it, shall we? How are you? You look good.
Yeah, you too. It's been a refreshing break, but man, it's exciting to be back for this occasion.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that's happened, of course, since we left. As soon as we leave, that's when all this stuff starts happening. But hey, it's been fun. I feel good. I feel rested. It felt like we haven't done a show in 10 years, but it's only been 2 weeks. So we got another 2 weeks, and then we're back officially. But let's come back halfway today, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's bring in our guest today, Mr. Tim McMillan, who is founder of the Debrief, a news organization we all depend on and love when it comes to science, tech, futurism, and of course, military and UFOs. So Tim, in Germany, about to go to the Ukraine. We'll get to that in a little bit. But sir, welcome, man. How are you? It's been a while.
I know it has been a while, and it's good to be here, man. You know, so sorry for seeming tired. It's a little late here, but you know what? I'm waking right up. I will get fired up for you guys. I promise.
Excellent, man. Well, I appreciate it. Well, okay, so let's just dive right into it. So you wrote an article that exposed this gentleman by the name of Harry Reid, who happens to be the head of counterintelligence.
Gary
at
Reid.
The department. Gary Reid, excuse me. Yes, Jerry Reid. Welcome back, everybody. So you wrote an article. Basically, the things that I took away from it, there were three major things. The first is his bungling and absolute horrendous oversight of the Afghan refugee evacuation. The second was that he was sexually harassing his coworkers and giving special treatments to the ones who just shut up and took it as compliments, as opposed to an unsafe work environment. And the ones who didn't go for the advances didn't get promoted and essentially are just stuck in limbo in this system because their boss wants to be different with them for some reason. And then the third thing was that Lou Elizondo came up in this investigation, a 2-year investigation, by the way, which is, I gotta say, damn, man, like, there's so many things I want to dive into this, but to do an investigation for 2 years, I'm sure it was tough to sort of hold the lid on this. But that Lou Elizondo, and this seems to be the sort of the linchpin of Lou Elizondo's thorn in the side, so to say. Like, this is the guy that would have been in charge of the AOI MSG office, which is, I think, maybe why we saw Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo raise the red flags about this new office and why they were unhappy about it, because they knew he was going to be the head of it. So, and he also, like, this idea of information seems to this seems like the guy that it was stopping at. This was the guy that wasn't passing the intel along like he should have been, because he didn't like Lou, or he didn't think the study was worthy, whatever his reasons were. But he basically skipped protocol to hold a grudge and say, nah, I don't like you, get the hell out of here, and forced them to essentially resign. Is that fair? Those three takeaways from that article? Sex, lies, and UFOs.
You just summed it up well, and I can't reiterate enough the fact that all of those pieces you just mentioned came together was a huge surprise to me as well. And so, just to kind of give some background and kind of the impetus behind this, is I heard about Mr. Reed. I mean, I knew kind of who he was. He was formerly the defense director, or the director for defense intelligence at the Undersecretary for Intelligence's office. Now, his position in that cannot be understated. And for people who aren't aware, he was very literally in charge of all counterintelligence, all security, all law enforcement for the Department of Defense worldwide. I mean, this is a huge position, and in fact, in a lot of ways, is more powerful than people who a lot of people might be more familiar with, like the Secretary of Defense or the undersecretaries, because these people are what's called principal executives. They're appointed by the president. They're there for 8 years tops. Very, very few of them last that long. A lot of them do 2-year stints. But the position he was in, he is categorically a bureaucrat, meaning that he can hold that place of power, or could have held it for God knows how long. You know, he's not going anywhere unless he gets fired. And so, significantly powerful position. And, I had heard murmurs. I knew he wasn't a very well-liked guy. And so this goes back even pre-reporting days, going back to law enforcement. Again, he was part of law enforcement. He was in charge of it all. And, some people had started kind of reaching out to me when I started writing articles. So when I left law enforcement, got into journalism, people reached out and were like, you really should look into this guy. Like, there's a lot of stuff you need to, this is a bad guy that needs to be exposed. And that was initially just had to do with the sexual harassment. And I highlighted a couple of instances that were in a couple of his previous complaints from the Inspector General's office. But I can tell you, in terms of stories that I heard, there were a lot more. There was a lot more. And so it just painted a picture of a really just arrogant, egotistical, and somebody that, I think anybody shouldn't want a position of power, frankly, shouldn't want to work around. I know me as a father of a 5-year-old girl, I'm looking at this for a couple of years going, this piece of shit, you think, this is the last person you want your daughter to work around, your wife to work around. And so after I got, probably 6 months, 8 months, less than a year or close to a year after I had been looking into them and looking for his emails. So, I'm reaching out to people, talking to him. I happened to mention to Elizondo, I said, at OSDI, you worked there, you know Gary Reed. And that's when he was like, dude, that was my boss. And so that's when all of a sudden it became this weird, holy crap, all roads lead to Gary Reed. And then in the middle of that, so then that got an added element. So not only, suddenly was I investigating his sexual harassment stuff, but I started asking people that either still worked in the office or worked at that time about his interactions with Lou. And, before even really getting into it with Lou, because you got to be careful there, you don't want anything to be biased there. So, I was able to track down some people in especially the law enforcement side of things who really early on, going back to before we even founded the Debrief, people may recall that I published that Air Force Office of Special Investigations report with Vice News. So going back to then, so that report, I saw that report and published it, knew it existed because people said, look, you need to look into this because he's even used Air Force Special Investigations to go after this guy. And they didn't even really know Luke. They were just like, he's using it, making it known. And then in amongst all of that, last summer, we had the Afghanistan withdrawal. And much to my surprise, to turn on the news and look at, there he is, the director, the person who's in charge of the Afghan refugee crisis group. So the people who were in charge of getting refugees out of Afghanistan. And I remember going, holy, just kind of shaking my head because of all of his background and everything. And we can all, we all saw the scenes of people hanging on wheels of planes. And we know, the United States left 78,000 SIV applicants in Afghanistan. It was not a pretty withdrawal. And so after that, that's when I expanded even further, started talking to people I knew in the special operations community, who were really, really upset. This was just another really emotional. This gentleman created a lot of emotions for a lot of people all across the defense apparatus, virtually none of them good. And they were extremely upset because they felt that when he came in with that group, he really put a stop to a lot of the work they were doing. They were successful in getting people out, and he came in and they just put a stop to it for no other reason they could figure than you just want to be in charge. And it unfortunately caused a lot of people to be left behind. So I think you summed up those three big areas well. And, for me, and going through all of this, the stuff, the workplace harassment, and then ultimately the Afghan refugee stuff, no offense to Lou, because that was important. What he was, he was obstructing that. And he obviously made Elizondo's life hell. But those two really hit home because those were ones that were directly impacting people's lives. and so in amongst all of that, I got word, I wasn't necessarily ready to reveal it all because you're going after a very powerful individual who's vindictive. And I was still waiting to get some more. Like I mentioned in the article that he had obstructed, I believe he obstructed our ability to get FOIA information and everything we had sought. I got a message, hey, Reed's been fired. And I went, oh my God, he's gone. This is huge news. I was like, now we need to get this out there because it needs to be known. There's still, to my knowledge, the Department of Defense is just declining to comment. And so they haven't even put out the reason or disclosed he's gone. But, if no other reason, then all of this other bad stuff needs to come out so that hopefully it doesn't happen again. And so very gratifying out of everything. I think it hit on a lot of very important areas.
Rather, what do you got?
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. I'm curious, one of the most interesting parts, there's a lot of interesting things, but the whole concept that in 2017, when Lou Elizondo was running ATIP, he didn't tell his boss, Gary Reed, that he was, had this director level position. And I'm curious, how common is that? Is that, very unusual, or is that maybe something that happens and isn't that crazy?
It's not at all crazy. And this is something, and we might have talked about this the last time I was on this show, but I know I've talked about it before, that I think there's a common misconception for a lot of people who've never been in government or don't know anybody who's in government, particularly in the areas of intelligence, national security, outside of even in the military, but outside of what's called the big army. So the people that wear the beards, the people that don't always go and have to wear BDUs to work, there's a lot of flexibility. And frankly, the vast majority of individuals who've been in that world or familiar with it would tell you that the most significant work is always done very similar to how ATIP has been described. We're talking about working groups, so joint working groups that come together, and they're not unofficial, but they're not official, if that makes sense. Because in the government, for something to be officially started, there has to be appropriations, there's funding, there's so much bureaucratic BS that can hold things up, that in order to get things done, a lot of times these kind of ad hoc groups are formed, and it's not to diminish their capabilities. So just because they don't have an office with a flagpole out front doesn't mean that they're incapable of using all of the things that are at the U.S. government or intelligence community's disposal. And it doesn't mean that they're totally unofficial. It means, that it can be sanctioned through their boss, and oftentimes it is. With this particular instance, Elizondo told me he didn't tell Reed because Reed had by the time he got there, he had already been at the Pentagon 10 years, I believe. So he already had a pretty big reputation. And, he didn't trust him, didn't feel comfortable with him. And frankly, whether it was ATIP, I mean, this is something that Elizondo would have to answer because I don't know. But I would imagine it's not just ATIP that Elizondo didn't tell him about. And I'm certain there's other similar type programs that other employees didn't clue him into because, frankly, they didn't want to see what we saw in the Afghanistan withdrawal. They didn't want him to come up and screw it all up. And so it is extremely common, even though I understand that it makes it harder for FOIA. It makes it extremely easy for deniable plausibility. So when you ask the public affairs, hey, what's going on with this and this, it makes it very easy if the people who are in charge either weren't read in or don't like you or don't like the program to say, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not, and that is what's going on with the ATIP case. If you ask the right questions, and I know Jazz Shaw is always on here with you guys, and other journalists will tell you, if you ask the public affairs office the right questions, like, was there a working group like this? Did this exist? That type of thing. They won't answer. They answer the boilerplate. There are no assigned responsibilities. They're not lying. They're not lying there.
Yeah, I guess kind of where I was getting at was, it seems like the animosity between Reed and Elizondo came from this whole Elizondo not being willing to tell his boss about his responsibilities. And, I can kind of see where that would create some, discontent between the two. And I guess the question to you is, do you feel that is the source of a lot of that animosity? Or do you think that it is actually related to Reed wanting to shut down the UAP issue specifically?
And that's a tough one to narrow down. And I don't know that I have the absolute answer to that. I believe it's kind of a combination of a couple things. And because I'm not even sure that Reed knew about ATIP or anything like that at the beginning, when he had his secretary, when he called Elizondo the day he resigned, when he turned in his resignation letter, and called him and was like, get in here in my office. Elizondo's like, screw you, bro, I don't work here anymore. I don't know that he knew about ATIP. I think so. You have this, the portrait of this individual that was painted by me by 24 or more people who know him well, was not a pretty one. It was an arrogant one. It was somebody who was simply just angry, that this employee was just abruptly quitting, And B, he had submitted his resignation in a way that was supposed to go to the Secretary of Defense and not him. So he kind of took away the layers of bureaucracy where he could have, watered it down a little bit in terms of the reason for dismissal. And so I think there was some arrogance there. But at the same time, I certainly heard from plenty of people that his position on their office looking into UAP, that kind of stuff, he thought was just ridiculous. He didn't want to deal with it. It was becoming a very public issue, as we all know, and it was becoming an issue that Congress was getting involved in. So all of these things, especially when it's not really a wonder why he didn't want to take too much more on. I mean, he had a lot on his day calendar that didn't have to do with work. And so, he probably didn't want anything else, and certainly didn't want anything else that the media was going to be calling about and that Congress was going to be. You're going to have congressional staffers coming down saying, hey, what's going on with this? And none of that is something that he wanted. But that initial angst, I think, is probably a combination of a lot of factors. And there is potential that he was brought into the Pentagon and ran with the crew who has often been described as the religious side that was against the whole topic. Now, nobody ever called Reed specifically religious to me. I would say that his behavior would not suggest
not a very good one anyway.
Not devout, but he was he definitely was brought in under that umbrella of the kind of this religious Christian fundamentalist that were inside the Pentagon.
Wow, a sexually harassing religious fundamentalist. I mean, that sounds right on the money. But I mean, yeah, I mean, and also kind of answer your question rather, I don't think you don't have to have anything to do with the UFO topic and be working within that department and have animosity towards someone like that. Because like if he's sexually harassing, especially multiple women, which is what we've reported here in this article, chances are most people in the office know he's a sleazebag. I mean, people talk. But the thing I find disturbing is that the Department of Defense would allow that behavior to go on. That's the part that I'm like, it wasn't the UFO thing and smearing Lou Elizondo. It wasn't the harassing of young, new incoming employees. It was the bumbling of Afghanistan that got him fired. That was the thing that tipped the bucket. And I'm just like, it should have stopped definitely at the second stop. That's where it should have ended right there, 100%.
Well, is that correct? Was it Afghanistan that kind of tipped the bucket? Do we really? It seems like the actual reason is kind of mysterious still.
Well, that's true. We don't fully know yet now, and because they have not released an official explanation, and even the people that I know who are very close in that office, in that world, all say they don't know. Nobody came in and said, hey, this is why. Now, the general consensus from everyone is that it is most likely two main factors, one being Afghanistan, and two, even people who don't know Lou and don't even per se really care about the UFO topic or anything. They may share the kind of same sentiments that they don't think it's something significant, but they're also not working on it, have said that Lou Elizondo's IG complaint very well could be a significant impetus behind it, if for no other reason that during the investigation of his complaint, it very likely uncovered God knows what. And because they can be extremely thorough, and in their in the report that they did on just the sexual harassment stuff, they describe going through over 300,000 emails. The IG does a lot, so there's significant circumstantial evidence that Reed had attempted to prevent us from getting his emails and his BlackBerry messages and everything from FOIA. And so we can infer from that it's likely there is some information in those emails and everything that is not, it doesn't paint him in a good light, but the IG would have no problem getting that. And so it's there's no telling what all they got.
I
But
can
yeah,
tell you, the Department of Defense did not like this playing on TV.
as they shouldn't have.
And here's the thing: Lou Elizondo happened a couple of years ago. If he's been sexually harassing women, chances are he's probably been doing that his whole career. This is the most recent thing that's happened. So that's why I say, or that I'm inferring that this is probably the thing that, because this was I mean, if you want to consider the government something that does PR, but this is a PR nightmare. Like this does not look good for getting out with honor. You know, and all of those things that the military praises and talks about when it comes to pulling out of places in the world that we probably shouldn't have been in the first place. But the idea of getting out of there with honor, like this reminds me of Vietnam and the last people to get out of Vietnam before we pulled out, and people killed at the embassy. And I'm sure the people that got stuck there are not living wonderful lives right now. And I'm sure they're probably I would guess that people at the Department of Defense are still in communication with some of the 80,000 people that are still over there and receiving reports on the things that they're having to go through because now they're stuck in a part of the world where they're in big trouble. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a move either way we slice it. Don't sweat it. You're good. You still sound good. You still sound good. But here's something that I kind of, when I was doing Ryan Sprague's show about an hour ago, it popped in my brain. A few months back, Christopher Mellon wrote a blog about Blue getting his job back, his old job back at ATIP or the DoD essentially. And it's pretty damn, I mean, if you had a resume to put on a table for a newly vacant position at the Department of Defense, head of counterintelligence, check, was going to be in charge essentially of the AOI MSG, check. He'd be the perfect spokesperson for that office. And maybe Susan Goff would start getting some better information. Also, I think I venture to guess that Lou Elizondo is not going to sexually harass women in the workplace. I'm also venturing to guess that if something like Afghanistan happened again, someone with the field experience of Lou Elizondo, I don't know the field experience of Gary Nolan, to be fair, but I feel like Lou Elizondo would have done a better job at getting those refugees out than Gary Nolan. I'm just taking a bet here. Gary Reed. I'm messing this guy's up name left and right. Sorry.
He definitely would than Gary Nolan. Actually, who knows? Maybe Gary Nolan would have done
maybe Gary Nolan would,
I'd vote for him.
Gary Reed, I bet. I'm so sorry. But what do you think of that? I mean, do you think that this is an opportunity for Lou Elizondo to step in and fill these shoes? Do you think he wants that job? Is that a crazy leap?
It's not a crazy leap. I guess so. There's a couple things there. You're right. A, does he want the position? B, does the current DoD leadership and everything not only want two separate things? Do they want to take it seriously? And A, do they want to have it so public facing? Because if you brought Lou back in, well then obviously now there's going to be a lot even more attention on it. So they're both mutually exclusive. They may definitely want to take it seriously, but they're like, I don't want this much attention on it. So I could see pros and cons in both respects, in both regards. It would be interesting. I just have to speculate. He probably would want it back. I think if he could take it back, it certainly has been.
I mean, if Christopher Mellon's putting the idea out there, I'm assuming that he was like, "Hey, Lou, what do you think about it? Me putting this out there?" Right? I mean, I feel like he would have consulted him. That's a fair thing to sort of assume. So, I mean, he did bring up this IG complaint, and I'm sure Gary Nolan, it sounds like he was part of that complaint, if not the main crux of it. Would this be a strategic move? Like, this is the 3D chess that I hope that we're playing on this topic. I don't, but again, I don't know the qualifications of this job. But the thing that I find odd is that why is the mainstream media not picked up on this? Why are they not making this a big deal? Do you think that's coming from the DoD directly, or is this just something that's getting lost in the 24-hour news cycle?
Probably a little bit of both. So the DoD, and it still may come out. I mean, that's one of the things that we did not do with this article, that we've done in the past sometimes, is embargo it with bigger news outlets, that type of thing, so they already know what's coming, so they can get all of their background and get ready to publish as well. We didn't do that this time, and oftentimes it takes news outlets a while, especially with something like this, and at the same time, the DoD isn't giving them a whole lot. And so, if they call just to verify and they go no comment, they're like, shit, so that some of the mainstream outlets are probably considering what can we add to, how can we put our own spin on it so that we are getting the attention and not the debrief type thing. That's common there. And at the same time, I don't know. But, when it comes to the people who are in DC, so your national security reporters, again, this is somebody who is in a position that he would have had a lot of contact with the press and press briefings. I don't know if they're, he established, good personal relationships with some of these national security reporters who have gotten great stories in their beat in the past, perhaps because of him and stuff. And so they look at this and go, yeah, I don't know if I want to report on this because A, this guy looked out for me in the past, and B, I don't want, when I need to go to the Pentagon or when I'm trying to report on the next big thing, to be viewed as I'm the hit piece guy. I'm the one that's going to put out the bad news about it. Is that right? No. I think that that's why I said early along, this is probably, well, almost inarguably the biggest public service journalism I've done, because I think of how broad spread it affected so many people and his job. And that's something I guess they would have to answer. I don't know. And the DoD knew, though. I mean, that's one thing I'll add to the mix is when it comes to their decision to get rid of him, they knew by the beginning of this year that I had a lot on him and that I was getting ready to make a lot public. Right. And
well, what about the DoD spokesman? Should we be expecting a press release or some sort of official statement from them about the this leadership change?
Maybe if people push hard enough, and that may be that may be why there's a no comment right now, is because they when he was dismissed, they were hoping, all right, let's let this just slide out of the way. Nobody asked, we're good. The next big thing will come along. That very well could be possible. And then when people started reaching out and they may be like, crap, we got to come up with some kind of explanation. The other side of that I don't know is there's bureaucratic red tape for everything, and so he may very well be. I don't know the specifics of his departure. I did try to get him to clarify: did they allow him to resign, or did they just flat out fire him? But there may be some also legal things going on there. So let's say he was flat out fired. He may be appealing that to try to get a resignation, that type of thing, and that may prohibit them from being able to say anything. And so I don't know. We would hope so, but it's like Lou just said. When it comes to PR disasters, and you're looking at the Afghan refugees, it's also not a great PR. To say, yeah, we let this guy hang around that long. Yeah. That may be one way they look at it. Now, my opinion is that it is a good PR, especially for the current administration, because you have a new Secretary of Defense that wasn't in there when a lot of these things were going on. So it's a great opportunity to say, I don't know what everybody else did, but when it came across my desk, this is how we handle business. And so who knows? The Pentagon's weird,
I mean, it could be as simple as also just, hey, let's not say anything until we announce somebody. until we find somebody for the job, and so that way we could be like, okay, we've got new da 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 da, and then maybe I'm hoping at that point you would think a good reporter would be like, okay, why did you replace him? What was the impetus of doing this? And so maybe we would get them put on the spot, but it could be just as simple as, hey, here's a new announcement. It's a memo. We're not even doing a press conference about it. Who knows? Yeah, I'm interested to see. But my fascination is I can't wait to see what someone, and I'm sure even you, but first thing in my brain was like, man, I can't wait to see what Greenwald Foya's out of this.
I mean, it will definitely be interesting to see what can be FOIA'd out of this most recent kind of debacle. They haven't announced a formal one, but I can't fathom that there hasn't been. It's almost been stunning because the State Department has announced that they are currently investigating the Afghan withdrawal, but I can't fathom that the DoD hasn't as well. And so that kind of thing would come out. Almost, something like this, there definitely is a long paper trail. I mean, there's certainly a paper trail. This came up in a conversation on Twitter last night when it was, well, now that we know this is who's in charge and this is ultimately who's given the statements, down to the fact that people I consider to be highly, highly credible and have been very reliable in the past, two of them told me that they knew for a fact that the people who in O&I who were running the task force before this new AMOFISG, whatever office, had issued more clarifying statements to the public affairs office regarding Lou and everything, and those have been shot down. But all of that is a paper trail. So it becomes like, a lot of people I think are out for blood when it comes to Susan Goff. And, I think that I told people, well, let's play devil's advocate here and just be patient, because and a lot of times these public affairs officers, they're just conduits for information. They don't come up with it. Susan Goff never worked in OSDI. She never worked with Lou. So she could very well but just be going on whatever Gary Reed or whatever's coming out of that office. There doesn't necessarily have to be this shadowy conference room in the Pentagon where her and Reed or her and whoever gather around. They're like, all right, let's get them. But there's a paper trail there. And so, almost assuredly, she, unless she's just lost her mind, when the IG investigators come to look into Lou's complaint and everything, she'll have that and say, here's what they told me, here's what they said, here's my paper trail. They keep it for everything. So it'll be interesting there. The last time that I spoke with Susan Goff about Lou, and again, like I mentioned, that when you ask really pointed questions, like, okay, well, he wasn't the named director, but was this group and everything, they can't answer. But her final response to me was almost kind of exasperated, was just like, Tim, that was a long time ago. He was just like, I'm. And so I don't know. And I mean, that could be an unfortunate side of it is whoever the new person who takes, Gary Reed's position, all of that, if they're totally fresh, new, have never worked in USDI, they could be like, I don't even know who this Lou Elizondo is. I don't know what to tell you. But I do know for a fact there are still people at USDI. There are people that are working, that are tasked and assigned to the new office who I know unequivocally, no Lou, no ATIP, knew it before 2017. So hopefully they'll be allowed to at least say that, clear the guy's name. And then if you I've always said they can still all be nuts. If you want to believe that Lou Elizondo is a crazy man and that you looking at UFOs are crazy, that's fine. But let's just get the kind of facts out of the way. You can still hate the UFO topic and admit that there's a bunch of crazy people looking into it in the Pentagon. But let's just get that facts out of the way. And I think it's been well established, at least on my end.
Yeah. Lou, you're muted.
Sorry. I was saying, yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Well, okay, so then go ahead, rather.
Well, yeah, speaking of documents, you mentioned about 5 or 6 of these IG complaints that happened in the last, couple years targeted towards Reed. Did you get a look at those complaints or the reports? I know you mentioned at least one report. But yeah, were you privy to the conclusions of all those?
Yes. Yeah, they actually lumped it all into one. So it's kind of interesting. The IG got 4 complaints in a relatively short period of time. And so they lumped it, they started an investigation and into those first 4 under one kind of report number. And then more started popping up while they were investigating. In fact, the dynamics of one changed where one was, he was accused of having a sexual affair with another subordinate employee.
Jeez.
But that employee was like, no, they were sexually harassing me. And so it just kept spiraling until they got that. And there was even more, in the annex of it, they shared other stories, such as, like incidents where a female contractor got up, in the middle of a conference or something, and he like leaned back in his chair in front of everybody and was checking out her ass. And that was one of the things that I thought was stunning is multiple people who were there just talked about how brazen it was. They were like, he didn't care who was there, attorneys, military, and some of the female employees at office justifiably are or were and are pissed off about that. I think that they, some of them commented to me, and I think they're fully in the right for being pissed off when I told them that some of his misbehavior was so wild, where so widely known that there were senior advisors in the White House, the same building, they're in the White House, who talked to me like, oh yeah, Gary Reed, I heard this and this, and they, or the Secretary of Defense's office, they're like, oh yeah, I heard this, and they, they said to me like, but yet they did nothing, and I said, you're right, I said it's screwed up. I said, you're right, it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people, they condoned it by inaction. Even people who are good natured people, like they wouldn't do the same thing. And I think a lot of people thought that he had friends in high places and nothing would be done. And if you look at the outcomes of the first ones, they're not wrong, and that's unfortunate. But I think that there was a lot when you mentioned how does somebody like that survive that long, you just kind of have to look at the trail, the family tree there. And in his case, the former undersecretary for intelligence, so the top guy in that office, General Boykin, he was former Army Special Operations Green Beret. The person who took his job, Mike Vickers, former Army Special Operations Green Beret, worked with Gary Reed. And so these guys all, it's, imagine your high school jocks who just grew up and they all kept helping each other out and being buddies, and they
all
got
just ended up at the Department of Defense
in a bunch of power.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, rather. I was going to ask.
Go for it, Lou.
Do you think this will lead to any of those people who encouraged or just looked away from the behavior will also be questioned and or fired? Because I mean, if you're providing an environment where that can exist for that long, it's just not one person. There's other problems to this tree, and so. Do you think it'll lead that far, or do you think it just ends with Gary Reed? Yeah, we did our job. Look, America, we did it. We did it. We got rid of the guy who did the thing.
Well, I don't know if anybody from the Department of Defense is listening. Just happens to be a UCR fan. I will say that I'm not done. There's more. I'm not done with this. There's more. The senior officials that I just mentioned, so the guys that work with Reed back in the Army, they've all retired and since been gone. A lot of the ones, especially the ones that were in any positions of power that I think allowed it and condoned it, are all of them that I can think of are gone. And so it is interesting because there is a generational thing where I will say, as they came, the people who appear to be coming into leadership positions at this point don't share the same views and everything, and they come from different backgrounds, and it's hopefully the boys club is being eradicated, because on top of all the issues that we talked about here, so all the horrific issues, the sexual harassment, everything, one of the things that was really interesting and just about universally shared is everybody said he um, he he wasn't qualified. He wasn't qualified for the position he was in. He was extremely underqualified. And so again, that's the best analogy I can get is we all, all of us played on the high school football team, man. We won the championship and, went to the field party together, and now we're grown up. So I'm like, Lou, man, dude, they just nominated me for secretary, bro. You want a job? Come on. And, you're grabbing asses, going crazy, drinking beer in the office. I'm like, yeah, man, whatever, dude. That's kind of how it is. And hopefully that's going away.
Well, yeah, and it seems like the oversight just isn't working, right? Like, does the inspector general, what kind of teeth do they actually have? It's shocking to me that you're saying that in 2020 they came back and said that, yeah, he violated the joint ethics regulations and he had an appearance of an inappropriate relationship, yet he stays on board for another 2 years. How does that happen?
Yeah, with no punishment. Micah, our editor in chief, probably, I didn't even try because he never would have let me put it in there. But I almost said that the only reason the IG didn't conclude there was a sexual relationship there is that they did not physically stake out somebody's house and watch them making the beast with two backs through the window or something, because they all but said, look, this is inappropriate and everything. And the DOD IG has considerable power to be able to walk into anybody's office, say, let me look at your email, let me look at your phone. They do not have the authority to make decisions at the end. So that gets passed to somebody else's boss. And so, it is ultimately up to those people who are in power over those individuals who make those decisions. And, it just depends. And I think that's the other thing that was frustrating for a lot of people that I spoke with, that if this was a lower tier level employee, they would have been gone. But because they're a SES too, because they're a senior position. And, it's a very unfortunate, that's why we have freedom of press. That's why we have oversight. That's why we have rights organizations, is because unfortunately this is not something limited to the Pentagon. It just happens to be where I report, but I think everybody has seen similar things in their own workplaces or whatever, where somebody who's in power or well liked is taken care of. Probably one of the biggest positive takeaways from it that I got, though, is I will say that, and a lot of the people that I talked to who talked to me about his behavior or were upset about it, these were some of them were equally people who came from special forces backgrounds, special operations backgrounds, who, Green Beret, Navy SEAL, you name it, had been, what we might consider real macho, tough guy, like the type of people that maybe you would expect to condone his behavior or even join in it. But they were equally as disgusted. And for all the negative things, there were highlights in a lot of my conversations with them in tremendous respect that I earned for a lot of the ones when I talked about the Afghanistan withdrawal, the people who were recently former or going back to these ATIP ad hoc groups who were part of special operations who helped get people out on their own. So the people who went over there, risked their own lives to help get people out, had tremendous respect for them, because that represents what you were talking about there, Lou. When you talk about the integrity, honor, sense of duty, I equally at times felt their frustration, though. It's not something that they should have had to have done. They did it, and they're still doing it, but they shouldn't have had to do it. So I certainly don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that everybody at the DOD, everybody in the Pentagon is a huge piece of shit rapist, and even the people in charge.
Of course not.
There's a lot of good people out there. This just seemed to be a bad one. I think the problem here, and rather you really hit it hard, is that you know, there's more good people than bad. What pisses you off is that the bad one, if especially when they're in power, they're allowed to exist, and that just makes all the good ones miserable. And if in the case with him, you know, numerous employees resigned, and that's unfortunate. You know, we need good people, talented people working in these sectors. We don't need pieces of shit.
Yeah. No, that's, I mean, yeah, it always sucks when something like this does happen, because I think you know, what you're intimating essentially is that you get this one bad apple and all of a sudden the bunch is ruined, and you it's easy to just paint the Pentagon or the Department of Defense with this brush of, they don't care, they're monsters, they're hiding the information. And it's like, dude, there's so many people that work within this. You know, I just watched a documentary. Really got stuck on Monica Lewinsky and how that whole thing went down, and just how like simple, how this affair simply got out of control, and you know, people's conspiracy, like there was no, like, people would think, oh, the president of the United States, he would have shut her down, he would have had her killed, he would have this, he would have that. It's like, no, he was powerless in this situation. He actually got caught blindsided by the investigation. He had no clue of the information that they had, which I was kind of blown away by. The idea that the White House, nobody in the intelligence community was monitoring these calls or had any sort of inkling that this was going on. Insane to me. But yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous thing to just paintbrush that. But one of the critiques of your article, and you wanted to touch on this, was that there's no sources. There's no sources in this article. There's no names, and therefore, you know, it's not valid. Would you like to address that?
Sure, yeah, and I think I mean, I think that's an important topic, and I'm happy to address it, because I could care less. You learn about it, you know, haters gonna hate. But at the same time, I think the overarching message here, when you're talking about, there's some really serious issues that's being talked about here. So even if you hate UFOs and you're just one of those people, you're just an antagonist of the UFO topic, to dismiss the other stuff because of that. That's really unfortunate, and in particular, if that is the reason for it, you know, I can't highlight enough that if you go back and read that entire article, absolutely nothing that I presented and information-wise is dependent upon anonymous sources. Absolutely none of it. If it's the sexual harassment and the inappropriate conduct, that's in that IG report. It's an official report. You know, you can get it from FOIA. I got it from FOIA, or like I mentioned, you know, a couple people have reached out to me, and I emailed it. So if you reach out and I don't email it, or I didn't answer you, it's just because I didn't see your message. I was busy, but I'm not holding it, you know. But you have that in black and white. You can read a lot more. I know people that I sent the report to even came back and were like, "Oh my God, why didn't you report?" You know, because they mentioned that he, you know, like he had his own like dish set up to wash the dishes after their lovely lunch romances. They're like, what a weirdo. Like, there's just weird details in there. You can only report so much. So there is interesting stuff, but that's all substantiated in there. And so, you know, I'm breaking it down in those three sections. So that first section, the sex and lies in it, the only time anonymous sources said anything was really just color commentary. And that represents the, you know, instances over the last 2 years of people I've spoke to where they mentioned something that I thought was powerful and needed to be said, and was important, or, you know, it just added some context for people. But if you don't want to hear it or don't believe it, that's fine. It doesn't take away from that information. It doesn't make it go away. You know, I particularly thought the one woman that I spoke to who still works in the Pentagon, when I asked her, you know, do you think it's changed? And she said, you know, I'd like to hope so, but let's be honest here. He didn't get fired until he screwed up Afghanistan, or a man, Elizondo, filed a complaint. I thought it was powerful. You know, if you you know, if you need to hear her name, that I'm sorry, but you know, it is what it is. And then she mentioned something that I thought was incredibly powerful that probably the average person wouldn't have thought about, which was the fact he was head of counterintelligence. his proclivity to sexually harass people made him a huge risk. All Russia had to do was waltz somebody in there in a short skirt, and next thing you know, he's handing the keys to the kingdom. So I thought it was powerful, but that's just color commentary. If you go into the Elizondo complaint, there certainly were things where anonymous sources were used in terms of his target harassment. So when it was discussed about how he changed the information in scattered castles, huge pain in the ass for Lou, which I'll explain more if anybody was confused about what that meant. But that information, sure, that comes from an anonymous source. But at the same time, I use that AFOSI report to kind of corroborate what they're saying by showing, here was this official investigation. Here's the report for this official investigation. Here they are writing it, saying they thought it was classified. There's no reason they should have thought that. Here's who ordered that investigation. Here's where the office. Here's its forward. Again, there's the black and white. And in terms of Elizondo's actual complaint, well, I mean, he's named throughout it. He's quoted on it. He's on the record. If you don't want to believe Elizondo, that's fine. But I'm just quoting him. I mean, if you want to question his complaint or what he's saying, here's the person to question and complain to. That's him. And in terms of the Afghanistan withdrawal, there were indeed sources in there that gave a little more context in terms of what was going on behind the scenes. But at the same time, if anybody questions the accuracy of that, the videos are still online. You can go to DOD's website right now, type in Gary Reed. You're going to get the press transcripts. You can pull up the video on YouTube of his press briefing where he clearly says, I'm the director of the Afghan crisis group. Here's what I'm in charge of. Here's what we're doing. And we know what the outcome of the Afghanistan refugee withdrawal was. You just brought up the pictures. So you didn't need any sources to validate that. And then and the ending of that, of kind of why he was dismissed, everybody gave their opinion, but it was clearly said as an opinion. And it, I said it, the quote said it, everybody said it, where it was, we believe this is why, but we don't know. And so there's nothing I can really say or do that's going to make anybody change their mind if they're just going to dismiss it because of that. But I think if anybody would objectively go through what's written there, the big takeaways there, and especially about this individual, you don't need anonymous sources to verify that. You can verify that on your own, all of that. And at the end of the day, it's near impossible to report on national security matters and not use. People are not supposed to talk on the record. They're not supposed to talk to media. Some of them do for various reasons because they think information is important. Sometimes that's officially sanctioned. I think probably going on right now is the daily Ukraine press briefing at the Pentagon, and you'll see from the Department of Defense's website, a senior defense official says they're not going to name it. And so this is not anything you pick up. If you pick up the newspaper day, you're going to see that. But if there's anything in there that people question or think is inaccurate, by all means, go try to verify it. I stand by everything that was written in there, but I think the biggest takeaways here don't require anonymous sources. So in my ultimate opinion there, I think that's just a cop-out that people either have a bias, largely because of Elizondo. If I hadn't added that in there about Elizondo, we wouldn't be hearing that. And I think probably everybody could agree with that.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my question, my follow-up to it, because when I read the article, I'm like, my first two takeaways had nothing to do with Elizondo. 90% of that article was about misconduct, lying, and just complete incompetence and sexual harassment. And so, I'm curious to know, like, do you think adding the Lou Elizondo element into this article hurt it? I mean, for me, it was entertaining. I mean, did you, or I guess a better way to ask the question is, did you think about this? Is this something that you in the team at the Debrief sort of thought about before putting that part in the article? Because I think it's, like you just said, it's a stand-up article that I think can be verified by anyone. And plus, like, who's been sexually harassed wants to put their name out in public about this? Like, nobody. They're just trying to do their job and get promoted, get a higher paying, more access job, like everybody at the Department of Defense is trying to do. But yeah, I mean, did you guys think about that? And what were the discussions like?
You know, we really didn't, and it really was limited, not because I guess because primarily you know, what goes into what we're going to share with information like that, is it accurate, is it important, is it significant, is it information that the public needs to be aware of, so that they can make informed consent about things that affect their lives. Pre-existing beliefs, biases, all of those things don't come into play. And so, you know, if we, you know, I stand by what we said with Elizondo, going into it saying, well, are people going to read this and they're going to dismiss everything because of Elizondo? That's a them problem, not a us problem.
Right.
And because, you know, that not reporting it doesn't make it not there. And then at the same time, you know, you can dislike Elizondo. You cannot believe Elizondo. You can think he's a crazy man. You know, all of these things. That's fine. But was this man his boss? Absolutely. Did multiple people say that he harassed him? Was there evidence behind that in the AFOSI report? Absolutely. Did he file a formal complaint with the IG saying as such, you know, under an affidavit? Yes, he did. And so therefore, he can be a crazy man, but he doesn't deserve to be mistreated. He doesn't deserve to have somebody. And when I mentioned the scattered castles thing, in case people don't understand what exactly that did, what happened there is Gary Reed put a note in his file. Scattered castles is the computer system that they use to verify everybody's security clearances. So if you've got a security clearance, you're walking into a SCIF or secure facility, they're going to verify that you've got an active one. Well, he put a flag in there. So every time he tried to walk into a secure facility or anything, they had to call Gary Reed. Hey, Elizondo's here. And the reason you do that, you know, it's administrative terrorism in that eventually employers and people are like, something must be up here. You know, if you apply for a job, Lou, and they go to verify your clearance and you've got a flag, they're going to go, you know, it doesn't say why. And so you're looking at it going, do I want to hire this guy, or is he under investigation right now for being a foreign agent? I don't know, but is it worth the risk? Hell no, because I don't want that headline to say, you know, Northrop Grumman contractor arrested for spying for China. So it's just these little administrative things there. And again, you don't have to believe them on the UFOs or any of that as well. But does anybody deserve that? No. You know, no different than you can have the person you think is crazy on the corner with the sign that's saying rapture's coming. They don't deserve to somebody come punch them in the face. You know, I don't. That really wasn't a big deal with it, and I think genuinely, the response has been extremely positive and favorable.
I loved it. I thought it was one of the best nuggets we got on Lou Elizondo in a long time. Because for me, it's like, okay, now we got the name of the guy. We know who was disrupting it. It feels like it adds a lot of perspective to a lot of the things that Lou Elizondo was saying. You said that thing, administrative terrorism. That was a phrase they used, and we were like, what the hell does that mean? Like, and we talked to you about that the last time you were here. So that makes sense. Like, every time you come into work, this jerk is getting called on the phone and giving you a hard time just to come into work. Like, what's the deal, dude? You know, so like I can understand how he was forced into a position of, okay, I'm gonna resign because this is bullshit. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, it's ridiculous. But rather, what are you gonna say?
Well, that was after he resigned, right? The administrative terrorism and the doing all that retaliation. I guess, you know, my and I really appreciate you adding that Elizondo blurb at the end too, because there's this whole IG thing that Elizondo had done, the complaint that he filed. We really didn't have any details of that until now, and I guess, you know, my question is this the end of Elizondo's IG complaint? Because it certainly is the end of Gary Reed, but when you talk about things like deleting emails and stuff like that, is there still investigation that's going to happen and more results?
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's still ongoing. You know, they do. I did ask the IG's office, and they said they couldn't comment on it. I mean, one thing about the IG that I love is they play 100% by the rules. So, like, if you file a FOIA with the IG's office, in fact, I'll say this because I didn't mention the article. Probably should have. When I filed a FOIA for Garrett, after going through all the stuff I still am going through to get his emails and everything. Now it's a matter of principle. He's already been fired, but I'm like, no, I want him.
Yeah.
When I asked for Gary Reed's investigative stuff, anything they had on him, the FOIA officer called me and said, look, I've got a ton. They said, but a lot of it is going to have to be declassified. So it's going to go through a very lengthy process. Can I just send you the report of the investigation that'll give you the comprehensive overview of everything? We'll keep processing all of those files, report, everything, all the nitty gritty stuff. But can we go ahead and get this to you? Sure, thank you. That's great. 2 weeks. Wow. But they play by the rules. And so when I ask, hey, is this still ongoing or anything, they're not going to comment on that. And to the best of my knowledge, that is still ongoing. It probably bleeds into their evaluation of the UAP that they did formally announce. To the best of my knowledge, that is still ongoing. A couple of people I spoke with just gave their opinion or speculated that it could be coming to a close soon. But it can take a while. I think we're coming up on a year since he filed it, and I think when John Greenwald was able to get some information on the evaluation, I think people got a peek in the inside of how seriously the IG takes their job. I mean, you had multiple people being briefed on what they were going to do and everything. So there's a lot of parts in it. I think that is something that I will be anxiously looking out for, is the IG, both evaluation and Elizondo's complaint, because I have a feeling that could be very revealing. And I've always said that could be, people talk about disclosure, transparency. That's probably could be one of the biggest pushes there, just because of the power they have. They can shine a lot of light.
Yeah, well, no, we're definitely interested, and we can't wait for that to start coming to light as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a process, man. Like, this doesn't happen in 3 months. Like, this is already like an investigation into a really shady jerk off in the Department of Defense took 2 years to get into print form and get to the people. So an IG investigation, I'm sure, is something even more complicated than just putting out an article like that. So I mean, I'm patient. I can wait. But I think, this is one of the best nuggets we've gotten in a long, long time on Lou Elizondo, because again, it just solidifies, I think, for me, again, and we've had our disagreements and things that we find questionable. But for me, the idea, especially those emails from John Greenwald, that he is fighting for this. He's put in the IG complaint. He's actually had it. Probably, who knows? We'll see. But it seems like he had a part in playing in getting rid of Gary Reed. And this was a question kind of I wanted to bring up, just to quell conspiracy theories like this, because he's suggesting that Lou Elizondo collaborated on this article. I don't think he collaborated on this article, but did you ask Lou about Gary Reed in writing this article? Was there anything did he maybe help you with or pointed you in a direction?
He's quoted, right?
Yeah, I interviewed him. Yeah, I interviewed him. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. In terms of like collaboration, did we work together on this? Absolutely.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, okay. It sounds like he's trying to say that he's a ghostwriter on the.
And I heard. I heard some from Twitter and everything. People. There was this Keith Clore, of all people, this idea that this was something handed to me by Elizondo, like he gifted it to me and all this stuff. I mean, that's demonstrably false. And like I said, I have the receipts going back to when this first came to light, and when I even first mentioned it to Elizondo, which was long after I'd already been looking into him. And I mean, Elizondo, I would imagine, would be the first person to say that when I mentioned Gary Reed's name to him, he was stunned. He was like, "Holy shit! How do you know about?" That's absolutely right. Like, I started asking him details, but that's just not the process that I would go about. And because going into it, you understand, and I have no, Lou's a real likable guy. I like Lou, but at the same time, I'm trying to be fair and objective to everything, and so I already know what Lou's stance is on UFOs, all these types of things. So it's very similar to going back to my law enforcement days. You're interviewing a suspect in a way. I want to have more answers than I do questions whenever I start that process. And so you can kind of gauge. And so, you know, he was definitely interviewed for the article. He was definitely asked his opinion on certain things. You know, he was definitely willing to share details of the IG complaint, that kind of thing. But collaboration in terms of like, did he help craft it? Absolutely not. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Well, I'm just glad that we could quell stupid rumors like that. That's why I really wanted to ask the question.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other stupid rumor I heard, but just so we can clarify that, was that I'm named in the IG complaint, and I did ask about that. That's true. I'm named as in Susan Goff gave journalist Tim McMillan this explanation as a blah 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 blah, and you know, I had emailed Lou and said, you know, I don't even remember the context of it, but it's no assigned responsibilities. I emailed Lou and Chris Mellon, I think, and said, hey, they're saying you had no assigned responsibilities, this type of thing. Just a heads up, you know, what is your thoughts about this and everything. But I heard that get mentioned, and I'm like, well, yeah, you know, something that I had published and quoted that was in there that was already going to be public was evidently used in that, but it was used in the context of same thing anybody could have published what I said. You know, it was public information that was being published. So just to quell that one, because I remember somebody mentioned that to me.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard that one. Yeah. Well, of course you are. I mean, why wouldn't you be?
Well, that's yeah, me, Lou, we're in Hunter Biden's laptop in the bio labs in Ukraine. We typed all of this out, and this is exactly how it went down just before getting the bodies out.
Well, you mentioned Ukraine. I want to just touch on this a second before we let you go. You're going to the Ukraine. What is the motivation behind that? What will you be doing there?
Probably, I'm still working out some of the logistics. So got the media credentials and everything. It's for a specific story that's going on there. And so I'm dependent on some individuals who are already there, you know, being able to meet up with me and bring me in so I can cover what they're doing and everything inside of there, because I think it's an amazing, incredible story. It's, you know, very similar to what's going on, what happened in Afghanistan. And so, you know, helping people out, going above and beyond. And so that's all lined up, but at the same time, it's a war zone. And so it's a very dynamic thing. I certainly hope that it's working. Yeah. I'm waiting on my helmet. I have my giant flak vest. The Ukrainian government has already said they'll approve my media credentials, but I have to have a vest and a helmet. And I have the vest, but waiting on my helmet. But I think that's definitely something I want to do. I've already, you know, this kind of came up because Reed got fired. But if anybody's read anything I've done in the past 6 weeks, it's been just Ukraine. And that's because defense is the area that I primarily report on. And in fact, Russia House is where, that's what I write about with the Washington Examiner. So this is a really huge and important issue, and especially living in Europe here, it's a significant issue. And it goes back to this whole Reed thing. You know, I think that the biggest takeaways, the sexual harassment stuff, the stuff that was going on in Afghanistan, and for this, when you're talking about a war, you're talking about people losing their lives. I think there's definitely a lot of information that's going on there that needs to be recorded. It needs to be captured. And I think for everybody who's not living through that, and all of my friends and family back in the United States, I definitely want to share this information as much as possible, because I know living here in Europe now for almost 3 years, it's a different feeling. It's a little more, you know, even I'm in Germany, it's Ukraine, but you know, Kiev looks like Cologne. It looks like cities here that I live by. And so we don't have that same, I don't think we have that same emotional impact in the United States, because we've never gone through a world war. We never, they don't feel as close. But there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there. So if we can share that information, it'd be good. Hopefully it'll come out. I'll keep my head down, you know.
Yeah, be careful, guys.
Be safe.
Well, before we get out of here, I'd love to play a game with you. It's a game sweeping the nation. We love playing it on the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So it's called Stick With It, Let's Move On, or Bullshit. All right. So I'll give you a topic, and you say stick with it, let's move on, or bullshit. Just call it flat out BS. All right.
All right.
It's mainly UFO centric. It's fun. We'll see. Let's see how it works out. Okay. Roswell.
What are my options again?
Stick with it, move on, or bullshit.
And so, what are these? Am I supposed to say? Does this mean? Does this mean like stick with it? We should keep investigating it, or
stick with it. I think it's worthy of your time. Let's move on. It's been discussed ad nauseum. I don't think it's helpful to keep bringing it up. And then BS, this is not useful at all to the conversation.
Okay, I got you. Gosh, I know.
So Roswell alien crash.
I hate to say let's stick with it, but I mean, okay. It's unanswered for me. I think there are questions around that.
These are your answers. You're allowed to answer however you want, man. Don't feel any pressure.
Did I get it wrong? Did I get it wrong?
No, there are no wrong answers.
The answer key is not yet developed.
I think what pisses me off is that it has been discussed ad nauseum, but I will say that personally, there's not a resolution there for me, and so
stick with it.
Yeah, all right. Stick with it, man.
Okay. With you. Alien abductions.
Fuck, man. You're putting stick with it.
Stick with
it.
Okay. All right.
It's unanswered.
Okay. I'll give you hopefully an easier one. Secret space battles between aliens and humans.
BS. Let's just we'll definitely
Underground alien bases in Antarctica.
I'm gonna go with BS.
Okay.
On that one.
Let's see. Rather, you got any?
Bob Lazar.
Ooh, good one. Put me on the spot. I'm going to say definitively BS.
Oh, wow.
Causing controversy.
Causing controversy. Dropping the mic on that one. Okay. All right. I think we got you in enough trouble, Brad. Tim. Oh my God. You're gonna be getting a whole earful, I'm sure, from somebody. Well, listen, man, we appreciate you coming by. We appreciate you being a good sport. And doing such an amazing job reporting on this. Yeah. I mean, you're not only on this, but on the Ukraine as well. I'm getting a lot of my Ukrainian updates from you, so it's nice to hear that people are reporting on it, people care about it. I would one day love to, maybe just because this show's not a political show, but just pick your brain behind the scenes on what's going on there and what is our role as taxpayers, as citizens, and in this very complicated situation, because I feel like there's no easy answer, but I appreciate all of the awareness that you're bringing to it. I feel like it's a worthy cause.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to say, because I've thought about this several times, is I actually really appreciate how much involvement or interest I've seen out of what would categorically be called the UFO community or UFO Twitter. Yeah. And I get a lot of messages from people, a lot of people who followed me just for UFO stuff. And when we have a war going on and I pivot to that's all I'm doing, I was really impressed by a lot of people who maybe I only knew from UFO Twitter or only followed me for that reason. But not only did I find that they were both, interested in it, following on it, but I found a lot of people were very knowledgeable on it and they wanted to keep up on it. And I was a lot of respect for that, for the simple fact of the matter is there's people are dying, like this is a real, it became something that is truly affecting life and death. And I was very impressed. I think it gives a really good impression of the UFO community. I think if people see that and realize these are people who aren't just, praying to crystals in the desert and trying to call down alien spaceships, that just because you may be interested in the UFO topic doesn't mean that you're not an intelligent person who cares about worldly matters and can be
Mm.
knowledgeable on geopolitics. And if you're not, also be interested in it. So
Well, with
but
that, I mean, Stephen Greer, let's move on. Stick with it or bullshit.
I'm going to go with bullshit.
Yes. All right. Well, I was gonna just to double down on what you're saying, because I think you're right, and we've kind of pivoted here as far as the big phone home is concerned, because I think a big win for this community if we had a hand in helping declassify information that shouldn't be classified, if we had a hand in helping intelligence agencies talk to each other in an easier way with more freedom, and also if we had a hand in streamlining the FOIA process. I think these are all huge wins that not only apply to the UAP discussion, but democracy as a whole. I think that is good for everything. And these are things that we can ask for, we could fight for, even in the midst of, say, a war, and not seem insensitive to what's happening in other places, both domestically and internationally. And I think, I think it's a much more sophisticated message this time around, because now we've got legitimate concerns that we could apply and ask for, and hopefully that'll trickle down to the thing we really want to talk about, which is the UFOs.
Every single person, and especially now that we have congressional precedent, you have an office that's been congressionally mandated, it's being funded. The way that this system is supposed to work, the way that democracy is supposed to work, and you can use what you see in Ukraine and Russia. I report on Russia a lot. That there's the antithesis of what it's like to live in a free and democratic society. They control your media, they control what you say. You literally go to jail for using the word war. But in a democratic society, we are supposed to, our lawmakers and our government is supposed to operate by informed consent, meaning we are informed of what's going on, we consent to what's happening, and we have congressional action, we have money being spent in government. And I think that regardless of your opinion on the UFO subject, you absolutely are entitled to have informed consent. And anybody that says it's, the greatest thing since sliced bread or it's all bullshit, they're not able to make that decision because they don't have informed consent, because we have such a little tiny sliver of what's going on. And so, yeah, no, I think that everything that you just said is spot on, and not to get on a soapbox, but even if you think, again, Elizondo Melanin can be crazy and all of this, well, let's base that off of informed consent. Let's base that on information in our government, and let's say, hey, maybe if it's all BS, we don't want you spending money on that, or maybe there's something a lot to this, and in fact, I would prefer if you spent more money on this. That's
well, but
the way
there's
it's
also
worked.
but there's also a thing of like, hey, not every proposal is going to be perfect. Some parts of it are going to be BS. Every proposal that comes across the floor of Congress has pork in it or some sort of wasteful spending. And so, I mean, I think we're on a precipice here of turning this conversation into something a little more sophisticated that isn't reliant on show us the bodies and we want the craft. Like, I think there are other things that we can discuss that we could legitimately lobby for, and not conjure the crystal healer in the desert. I think we're getting close, and so it's fun to see that. It's fun to see you guys be a part of that over at the Debrief. I think you guys are lending a big hand to that. I think Avi Loeb's lending a big hand to things like that. Blue Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, all of these guys. You could take parts of these message and turn them into really great, wonderful legislative change. And if we were responsible for that, I promise you, people aren't going to just write us off as loons and crazies anymore. They're going to be like, yeah, you can talk all the smack you want, but those guys line the FOIA process, or those guys, because of them, shapes aren't blacked out anymore. Like, it's those are all wonderful things. So, man, so thank you. I mean, you guys, you and everyone over there at the team at the Debrief, you guys are great inspiration. So thanks for the great work. Seriously.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's more than happy to, and I couldn't agree more with you. I think that for a large part, even the arguments and everything, it's at a more mature level. I even kind of, when I see people arguing still over like OSAP and everything, like, right, it was a $22 million waste of money, and I'm going, Okay, well, the good news is here, even if you believe that, is you're recognizing that the government sometimes wastes money. But I think in my mind, God, because I get them every night, the DoD's contract list. So every day they put out who they're giving money to, and I'm like, man, those people don't want to subscribe to that list.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if they're concerned about that, then maybe be concerned about the other thing. Like if you care enough, but because 22 million is a drop in the bucket, but we do waste money on things. So it is a more mature, looking at it from that angle of wasteful spending or anything. That's at least you're being a productive and member of your government and society and being active with it. And so I think that you're absolutely right. The conversation, even if the interest is UFOs and not wasteful defense spending, what you're using to discuss that with is much more mature than, and it's realistic than standing outside Congress saying, "Show me the bodies."
Yeah, or trying to
Maybe they
storm
don't know
Area
if they're there.
51.
That's true, man.
Rather, did you have any last comments there?
I just want one quick one from Christopher Plain, triangle photo. Stick with it.
Stick with it. Move on or bullshit. That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you, Christopher.
You got Chris
Plain.
to blame for this.
First of all, I'd like to say, hey, Chris, how's it going, man? I've been so busy lately. Chris has messaged me a couple times. He did this morning, and I didn't get a chance to get back in touch with him. And so it is good to see Chris. And I'm thankful that he asked that question. I would say, is this, I mean,
stick with
it, move on, or BS.
Yeah. Stick with it. I can't tell you when it's gonna come out, but stick with it.
Keep asking.
And I will say unequivocally, if I had it and everyone else would have it. So if I could release it, I would. If I had it, I would release it. I think there's cooler stuff than that, though. So who knows?
I like that answer.
Damn it! Of course you said that right when I was gonna let you go. You son of a gun! All right.
I think there's cooler stuff than that. I think we'll.
I agree.
I want to see the stuff where you look at it and it's not like the Tic Tac or whatever, but it's moving in ways that you go, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
Like that's weird, and I think that probably exists.
All right, stick with it. We're sticking with it, Tim McMillan.
All
Sir,
right.
thank you so much. Good luck in Afghanistan, and of course, if there's anything we can do to help you, never hesitate. We're big fans. So yeah, thank you, man. Have a great night.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Always a pleasure, guys.
Not Afghanistan, Ukraine. I am getting Gary Nolan with Gary Reed with Jesus Christ. This is what happens when I take 2 weeks off, Tim. I'm sorry.
Somebody's on Twitter tagging Gary Nolan
It's
you
not
piece of
Twitter,
shit, sexual harasser.
It's my girlfriend going. It's Ukraine, you idiot. Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway,
well, I'm telling you, poor Gary Nolan.
Interview.
No, man, you're good. Yeah, poor Gary's getting accused of shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, people are tagging him on Twitter. You sexual harassing piece of shit.
Unidentified celebrity. What the hell is this? Anyway, all right, McMillan. Thanks, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all take care. Bye.
You too.
Tim McMillan.
That was
awesome.
a great conversation.
Oh my goodness, man. Names of countries and people are really slipping me today.
It can be hard to get back on that wagon.
Yeah, sure can. So I wanted to ask this in the interview, but I didn't. I figured, you know what? Let's save it for after the interview. See what Rather thinks. What I said, Lou Elizondo would be the perfect fit for this open position at the Department of Defense. I'm curious to know, do you think that's a good idea, or would that be too much of a distraction?
Yeah, I would be against that. I wouldn't be adamantly against it, but I don't think it'd be the right choice. I feel like we kind of need someone impartial and kind of.
Well, let me ask this. Here's the reason why I think it would be a really great fit. Let's just take the counterintelligence job aspect of it. Let's say we could split the job into two responsibilities and we hire two people. I think I'd be okay with being in charge of the AOI MSG because he would allow the flow of information. It's what he's lobbied for. It's what he's talked about. And he would also be a great conduit between Congress and the office, and what makes it into a classified report versus what makes it into a public report. I think he would be perfect at that job. I know it comes with baggage and, sock puppets. I know that's the dirty word of the month, but I think he would be a perfect for that job, just like Christopher Mellon essentially wrote in his blog. I mean, what would it be the end of the world for a Rather Be Squidding if that happened?
No, not at all. I think you do make a good point. I think that whoever's in there, we want someone who's committed to transparency and, releasing information to the public, which, I believe that Lou Elizondo would champion that and do a good
why
job
wouldn't
of that.
he, right? Like he's lobbied for public UAP hearings. He's asking for an amnesty period so people within these departments could come out and tell their story without fear of repercussions. He's sued the Department of Defense and got somebody fired for being a scumbag, essentially. And, I think he'd be perfect for the job. And he's familiar. Like the public, not the public at large, but a good part of the public has probably seen his face or has seen him on 60 Minutes, or he is a personable person. He would be a good spokesperson for that office. I think he'd give it a better name for sure. I think that would be the first thing he would streamline, but I think it would be it'd be a good fit, and I think it would also shut up a lot of his critics.
I think it would make them louder.
Well, maybe, but depending on what comes out of that office, right? Like, because if we get information that is helpful and adds clarity, then they have to shut up. They have to eat crow. You have to eat crow.
Yeah. Or you
have
to kind of
eat crow on some level. Like people are gonna have to eat crow on that, whether they like it or not.
Be kind of put up or shut up, right? If Elizondo's in that position, you give us something, right?
If he's in the position and produces nothing or produces even more unclarity, then we know, okay, terrible decision. Why we will know for sure, 100%.
Maybe not even a terrible decision. That would.
Even if he goes into the office and gives us good information and good data and more clarity and more permission, more transparency for science to look at this, that's a win, dude. Huge win.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because even if he went in and wasn't able to get that stuff for us, that would kind of tell us that there might be more said about it than there actually is, right? So
it could also be depending on what this is all going to depend on what we know, right? But if it's actively shown that he's tried to get this information, he's lobbied the certain departments, he's used the power of the office, and he's still running into obfuscation, you can't blame him for that. But if there's a clear case of, well, he's just not trying, or he's just reporting bad information, then we know. But yeah, I think it's like, hey, it's put up or shut up time. You got the position, you got the office, you got the guy fired. We still have the IG investigate. There's no more excuses now. Like, there's no more excuses if he's head of that office. So I, for one, would love for Lou Elizondo to step into that role. I honestly think the flip side of that job, he's perfectly qualified for. The head of counterintelligence. He was a counterintelligence agent. I mean, that's what he did. That's his wheelhouse. So I'm curious to know if the Department of Defense would even consider a move like that. I think it's too splashy. It's way too splashy, brings way too much attention. But I also think it would be a good move for the Department of Defense, because now they know, okay, well, if we put Lou in this seat, he'll field all the questions, and the heat is taken off Goff, the heat is taken off Kirby, the press secretary for the Department of Defense, and now they don't really have to deal with this anymore. He's going to be the one that gets the questions. So,
my gut kind of feels that it's probably completely unrealistic. But then again, he does seem to be still involved with the UAP task force, still has security clearances, it still is a government contractor. So maybe it's not that big of a leap.
The reason why I think it's a possibility is because Christopher Mellon put that possibility in writing. And these guys don't tend to write things down unless there's like a purpose and meaning behind it. You know, like all of the lobbying and all of the verbiage that Christopher Mellon had in those blogs was literally, in some cases, word for word what we saw in the Gillibrand Amendment. So that's the thing that and when Lewis asked, hey, would you be interested in having this old job back? Could you imagine if he had this old job back with the support of Congress, with the support of everyone at the Department of Defense? Like I think it's a perfect, it's like hand in glove, dude. And it go in line with a lot of the things that they've predicted that are in that fashion, you know, or have said, hey, look out for reports 4 times a year, look out for a public UAP report once a year, you know, look out for these things, these laws being made and written months before they could. I mean, it happens all the time with these guys. They are literally telling us what they are doing, and then it comes to fruition, you know, sock puppet or no sock puppet, like these things are happening. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's out of the realm, because they are considering it. And if they are considering it, then who knows who else might be considering it.
Yeah, I wonder if they kind of saw the writing on the wall for this Gary Reed story that of his ouster back then. Because if they did, then God, yeah, it's hard to not to agree with that.
Look, if that guy was your boss, you had some dirt on that guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get important bad people out of office. You know,
well, no, that was clearly shown, right? But what I'm saying is that I think once Afghanistan happened, you could see the writing on the wall that guy's job is probably in danger now, for sure. That is a huge public embarrassment. And that's something that you could easily point to and go, you see, that guy's not doing his job. Not only is he not doing his job, but he's sexually harassing people, and he's smudging my name and my credentials and whatever, and holding back information when he shouldn't be. Really is the issue there. I think yes, they definitely saw this. I mean, this was 2 years in the making with Tim McMillan. I mean, this goes back to before the Debrief started. The Debrief is not even 2 years old.
Well, but yeah, I mean, it took 2 years, right? Do you think that they knew that, you know, in April of 2022 would be the ouster, or did you think they thought, you know, this might be a 5
I think they didn't know
thing?
when. I think they didn't know when, but I think they knew it was inevitable. And in 2022, you can only do this so much before you get ousted or called out or caught. Like, that's also another thing. Like, if this had come out from, say, the mouth of a couple of women that put their names to it publicly without McMillan writing an article, and then articles and reporters started looking into it, it would have been a much bigger deal, I think. Because this is an abuse of power. It is absolutely an abuse of power to put that kind of expectation on your coworkers to sexually gratify you so they can get a raise.
Yeah, it's just disgusting. Sick. And it's disgusting that they knew that in 2020 and it took until now, right? It's on one hand, it's a great story that he got ousted. On the other hand, it's a horrible story that it went on for so long. And you know, how many other people like Gary Reed are
I think maybe, you know, and again, dude, like, this is just adds perspective, but I can understand how you could know about that guy for not just 2 years, but going back to 2017 and before that, that guy was your boss. And you've been sitting here waiting for this guy, for this moment, for him to get fired because he's a scumbag. And no matter how many alarm bells you've raised, nobody's brought this to the attention of the people that need to be looking at it. And now here we are, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, depending on, you know, when did Lou start working for the program and Gary Reed, you know, could be close to a decade of experience that he's been sitting on, this guy's a scumbag. He's talking shit about me behind the scenes. He's making Susan Goff say things that are not true. He's reporting things to her that she's just, I think, going on and saying. And then he, claps back with a letter from Harry Reid. Like, I can understand a mountain of frustration on Lou Elizondo going through that. Every time you come into work, somebody's got to call Gary Reid and be like, hey, Elizondo's at the front gate, or Elizondo's trying to get into a skiff, and possibly being told, sorry, Mr. Elizondo, we can't let you in.
Yeah. Or we can't get a hold of Gary. So, right?
Oh my God. Like, that would be like, so again, it's more perspective on a lot of things. This, we are not Lou Elizondo haters on this channel. Everything we do is to help his efforts, including the Big Phone Home 1, 2, and 3. That's all we care about, is helping his initiative. Everything outside of that, we're curious about, we'll ask about, no matter what the repercussions of that is. And it's going to be part of the overall story. But I think this at the core is what it's about for me. I think this is going to open up a lot of interesting new details that are going to start coming forward. And I hope, even if it's not Lou Elizondo that takes over that new position, that it is somebody that Senator Gillibrand and Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo sort of have a say in being like, okay, this would be the perfect person to put in that position. At least I hope they're considered in that decision, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. At the very least, hopefully they put someone in there who doesn't have multiple attorney, complaints against them, IG complaints of sexual misconduct and the like.
Well, there's no way you could put another person with that kind of background and record. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
Here's hoping. Yeah.
I cannot imagine they would just fill that in with another jock on the team and be like, okay, this is okay. Let's just keep going with this. We'll see. Let's see who they appoint. I'm sure we'll find out something on this more in the coming weeks and months. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. But if I was going to go to Vegas, if I could make a bet on this in Vegas, the odds would probably be way against me. But man, if I hit on this bet, I'd be rich. I would take almost any odds that Lou's
that Elizondo.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take that bet, Lou.
You'll take that bet? All right. I'll bet you $1 with 1,000 to 1 odds. 1 billion to 1 odds. I don't care. Make it whatever you want. I don't care, man. I mean, it's a long shot. It's a real long shot, but it wouldn't shock me. That's all I'm saying is, don't be surprised if this is considered even would be a big newsworthy thing to talk about. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
Matthew Wright says he'll take that bet. You guys, I don't think we've hit 3K yet, but if you haven't subscribed and you're watching, we had almost 300 in here for the Tim McMillan interview. Please do us a favor, subscribe. We're so close to 10,000 subscribers. I've never wanted anything so bad in my life. It's pretty shallow.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm not worried about it. We'll get there. But it'd be cool to do it on our comeback special edition vacation episode that we didn't have to do.
Yeah, we're at 9.99.
Are we at 9.99?
That's what I'm seeing.
Oh boy. So close. If we're at 9.99, that means we
keep on refreshing for the last 15 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I've been refreshing. Let me see. All right, we're at 9.99. Yes. That's exciting stuff. Well, man, yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. Again, to all the people out there that have subscribed. I'm assuming everybody that's watching live is probably already subscribed. I'm sure there are a couple that will never subscribe to us again.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that there's probably been a handful that have unsubscribed over these last couple of days.
Oh, absolutely. Well, no, actually, not really. Yeah, our channel is growing. We hit it. We're at 10,000. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, everyone. All 10,000.
We did it. Holy cow. Wow, that's such a cool thing. You know what? I'll just show everybody. Nah, I'm not going to show everybody. It's got all my analytics on there. I've already showed my analytics once.
Yeah, you can refresh the UCR YouTube page, and yeah, I can confirm 10K. Congratulations.
10K. Wow, man. Congratulations to us.
Yeah.
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Wow. I can't believe it happened the day we came out. That's crazy. Dude, insane. But well, we got a couple of minutes. Do we want to talk about these dirds? I'd love to get your opinions on these dirds. I know you did a video about them, right?
Yeah, well, two of them, right? There's 38 of them.
Oh no, babe, I gotta go work out tonight.
Okay, we'll just take a sip.
All right, she gave me a beer.
That's that case. Yeah, cheers.
I bought these beers, I swear to God, about 6 or 7 months ago, and I drank 2 out of the 6-pack. So yeah,
nice,
well, she opened it, so I got to drink her, right?
But yeah, the dirds though. The thing that's kind of shocked me is that it seems like there's just been all the attention is on the one dird by Kit Green about the biological effects, and that is a questionable document. I think that a lot of people have uncovered. The source was a MUFON report that sourced its information from tabloids, National Enquirer and such, and I think you can kind of dismiss that report, but that's not all of the reports. That's one of 38. And, these reports were essentially just Hal Puthoff going out to people in the field and saying, give me what's going to happen in 50 years. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that came back. One of them was from a 90-year-old scientist, physicist who grew up in Germany and had been studying nukes and all of his life, nukes and what else? Fusion stuff. And he has these crazy ideas about making nuclear powered spaceships, essentially fusion reactors that power a ship. And the craziest thing then is nuking a hole into the moon to find this elusive negative mass, which sounds crazy, and maybe it is, but it's a real document published in a scientific journal.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting nuggets there. I still haven't waded through them all.
Well, there's so many pages, but I know Stephen Greenstreet was just absolutely ripping this thing apart with his with his really subtle touches. But essentially saying that most of these things are from like Playboy magazines or National Enquirers or stories basically told second or third hand.
Well, and that's an indictment of the media, right? Because it's the media, the Fox Newses, who looked at all these documents and picked out the most sensational ones to go report on. And obviously, those most sensational ones aren't that great, aren't really backed by real science.
Right.
So I think, the indictment that Stephen Greenstreet and others who are critical of these dirds is more of an indictment on the media and what they picked up and their lack of due diligence and actually looking at the documents rather than an indictment of OSAP as a whole.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But of course, people are not going to take it that way when you edit it in a video that basically mocks the shit out of anybody who even considers this as a reality. It's a little mocking.
There are some other kind of questionable dirds in there. There's some that have photos of dinosaurs looking through portals and stuff like that. So you have to look at who's writing the documents and what sources they're using. But there's some interesting information in that stuff.
Well, do you think? And man, we got some insane super chats. Let's just get to these because thank you. Rick Roberts with a $2 super sticker and another $2 super stickers or super chat says alien pregnancy, stick with it or BS. I'm sorry I missed that.
If aliens exist, I think aliens probably do get pregnant. Human alien pregnancies, I think I'll call BS on.
Okay, fair, but Tim, we did ask him about alien abductions. He said, "Stick with it." So,
fair enough, yeah.
It might be. Who knows what he would have said next time he's on? Maybe we'll ask him for that. Sorry, I missed that, Rick. I appreciate the donation though. Matthew Riot with a $5 donation says, "Congratulations." G West says $10 for 10. Thanks, congrats. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, G West. You guys have been huge supporters of the show. And then Artisan Tony,
thank you.
Who I know we've had our differences, but thank you, man. I truly appreciate it. I'm so glad to see your face back in the chat. I know sometimes our show frustrates him. Sometimes our show frustrates people, and I get that. You know, and we have our own way of doing our show, you know. But we appreciate the support. We appreciate you guys caring enough to do something this substantial. It's insane. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. It means a lot that you guys would even consider doing something like that. $10, $2, $20, $100, $1,000. I appreciate all you guys. Seriously, thank you. Warlock with a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. But what I was, and I'm happy to see that, brother. I don't either, man.
Tony's a
so
great
much
guy.
for coming back. He is a guy.
He's a great channel too. Check him out on YouTube.
His interview with Lou Elizondo and Chris Lido and Alexander Novitsky, or Lexi, excuse me. Yeah, Lexi. Man, I'm really bad with the names today, guys. But Alexi was there with that. That was an insanely cool conversation. It was a very relaxed version of Lou. It was. And it's been viewed a ton. It's got, I think, over 100,000 views. So, man, congratulations. That was a killer interview. But my question was going to be, do you think, even though the news got this DIRDS thing pretty wrong as far as the veracity of these claims, like, do you think is it a good thing or a bad thing for the topic as a whole? I mean, it's getting talked about. It's on nightly news. It's a big platform. You know, if this information leads to people finding out about what's happening, say congressionally or whatever, you know, send down you know, that's the thing with information like this. They could go down a terrible rabbit hole. They could go down a great rabbit hole. So I guess, does this hurt or harm the conversation as a whole? Do you think the media getting it this wrong?
Yeah, that's hard to say,
it's
right?
Hard to say, right?
Because even the wrong information probably does rile up support, right? They report on the sensationalist claims because that's what people like to hear. Right. So it probably does get more interest into the topic. I think the question is that interest, if it's misplaced and not based on sound reality, is that, you know, good or bad? And I don't know the answer to that necessarily. Hopefully people who are hearing this stuff go and do their own research, do their own digging, and, you know, get led on to, you know, better information. So it's, I don't know if I have a good answer.
Well, Darius Muchanson with a $3 super sticker. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is either. It's kind of like, you know, I loved it. I found it fascinating when remember when Demi Lovato came out and she was on her tour for her show and people were like, this is ridiculous. Like, who is she to represent this conversation? And then there was an aspect of people going, yeah, I'm all right with this. Like, hey, more eyeballs to the discussion, and hopefully they find themselves in the right environment to have a cool discussion about this as opposed to a dangerous one, which, you know, this discussion is double-edged sword very much in that way, is that, man, this could lead you on some really cool, very fun facts, and then it could also lead you on some very cool, you know, very sensational, not so much facts, more hearsay or third-party retelling, or, you know, something that only relies on a document that can't be substantiated by any actual source. You know, so it kind of goes back to the whole Bob Lazar thing. Like, is he good for the conversation? Is he bad for the conversation? I mean, he's kind of, you know, one of the big reasons I got into the conversation was hearing that story. It sparks the imagination.
Yeah. And people, you hear that stuff and you try to find the kernel of truth that it might be based on, right? Which I think usually leads to a good place and you know, productive conversations. Yeah, so I'd say on the whole, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's I wonder what Matthew Riot thinks about the whole DIRDS. I'm sure he hated it.
Well, the thing that
but I can understand that though, right? Like, I can understand the frustration of like, oh my God, dude, this is a mainstream news outlet getting a story insanely wrong. Like, and so if they're getting it wrong on something this simple, man, what else are they getting it? We're like, how wrong are they on the Ukraine? How wrong are they on, domestic policy? How wrong are they on foreign policy? Like, there's so many, it opens up a lot of like questions that make you really sort of think twice about the sources and what's being said and what's being written, which is not a good place to be. We don't want to be questioning the free press. Like, that's not a great place for democracy to be sitting right now. But they're also not helping the conversation because they've put clicks and profit over reliable news.
Yeah, I mean, there's a syndrome, or someone has talked about, if you know about something that's in the news, you have personal experience with something, and then you read an article about it, you're almost always going to find that it's incredibly inaccurate. And
Right.
Makes you question the other articles. And I don't think that's really anything new necessarily. I think that it's tough to get things totally accurate. And I don't know.
Michael Huntington says, just like UFOtainment, we are UFOtainment. We are UFOtainment.
It's an entertaining topic. It's fun to just think about. And
why is that such a dirty word to attach to the most interesting topic possibly to ever be discussed? Why would it not be entertaining? When it's
not entertaining, it's probably going to be scary and horrible, right?
Yeah, UFOtainment's not a terror. The stigma that comes with that phrase is, I think, so unwarranted. It's silly, dude. Like, it's an entertaining topic. Think of a book that you're reading about this is entertaining. It's entertaining you. Like, it doesn't matter what the book, what the show, what the documentary, what it doesn't matter. It's all entertainment. It all has a purpose. It all has a bottom line. It all has a production team. It all has a budget, like all of it. So you slap this UFOtainment over something as if it's a bad thing. I hate to break it to you. It's all of it. Like, all of it is UFOtainment. UFO Twitter, everything. Everything is UFOtainment. So get over it, man. Like, it's a silly, silly thing to get hung up on. It really is. And I don't know if you're getting hung up on it, but I don't mean to yell at you like that. But just saying overall, it's silly.
Yeah,
absolutely silly.
I totally agree.
Grant Levac, I saw where'd it go? I didn't start. Did you start?
Yeah, here we go. Thank you, Grant.
Up if you can. Grant, thank you so much. Huge supporter of the show, and somebody I got to get in touch with this coming week, because I've got a small homework assignment that Grant can help me out with. But thank you so much for the $7.99 donation. What an achievement! 10,000 subscribers in such a short time. Congratulations, UCR. So well deserved. Bring on 20K, and then Jazz Shaw celebratory shots. Oh my gosh, this would have been a great show. Jazz would have drank the whole bottle. Damn, forget about the shot. Dude, I think he would have downed a bottle to get to 10K.
Maybe it's a good thing he wasn't here.
maybe. I also don't want to be responsible for the death of Jazz on live YouTube stream. Well, you guys, look at this. Aaron Desario, this guy. Look, I'm already slurring with one sip of beer, says Michelle. Aaron Desario with $100 donation. Everyone says that news coverage of their own expertise is absolutely terrible, but they trust news coverage of everything else. Congrats on 10K. Thank you so much, Aaron Desario. You've been a huge, huge part of this channel, a huge part of the growth around here. One of our moderators, one of our avid supporters, both financially, both and publicly. Dude has just got our back every single time, and anytime we run it, voice of reason. He's also he's always trying to bring civility and clarity. Sometimes he gets angry, but humans are getting human, right? Like, every human is going to have those moments, especially when the topic is so close to you viscerally. But yeah, just one of the best people in the community, man. Thank you so damn much, Aaron. You truly.
I didn't really realize this before, but it looks like he has an in with our dolphin emperors over there.
Who does? Aaron? Oh, yeah. You didn't notice that?
No.
Yeah,
I
Aaron
probably
is
did,
in.
but it's sticking out to me today for some reason.
Aaron is in with the Dolphin Empire, that is for sure. And he's also like behind the scenes when we have. Remember when our show wouldn't start last, or what? Oh, thank God that was a Friday show, but where the show just wouldn't start. We couldn't start the show. We were running into some major tech difficulties. Aaron pops in, and in 10 seconds was like, "Try this," and then it worked. I was like, "Dude, this guy."
Turn it on and off
amazing.
again.
Yeah, turn
I
it
think
on.
A little bit more
dude.
complex than that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, no, it was. It really was. He's like, yeah, just quit this and then restart a new one, and boom, you're good to go. And he was right. It was awesome. But yeah, so rather, congratulations on 10K, buddy. Thanks for
Right
being
back
here.
at
Thanks
ya.
for helping us grow.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. Travis Roberts, thank you so much. Congrats, guys. You deserve it. We appreciate it. We deserve fans like you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks.
we appreciate it. We
everyone.
I'm not gonna say we deserve fans like you. We deserve we appreciate fans like you. But if you guys can't contribute financially, don't worry about it. The beautiful thing about the show that will always be true is it's free, 100%. There's no paywall here. You don't have to put in super chats, ask questions. Contrary to an unpopular belief, we give the entire archive of this show is available for you anytime. We're going to put this episode up for podcasts within the next hour. We got still the next 2 weeks off. We're planning the next Big Phone Home 3. So that is in the works. I've got some ideas for that. I've also got some ideas for some segments that we're going to be doing on the show, which is going to be a lot of fun. So get ready for that. Yeah, man, we got some good stuff coming up. I'm excited. Rather, are you excited?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, you gave me a little preview of what you got in store, what we have in store, and yeah, I think everyone's gonna love the changes.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be. Yeah, they're gonna make the show feel even faster, which is a good thing because I want to leave you wanting more. But yeah, we're gonna be back the 28th of this month. Starting at, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this yet, but I'll make an announcement with all the details. We're going to be at 3 to 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Thursdays on KGRA live every week. So come join us. And again, don't get all bummed out that we're only going to one show a week. We've got the Skinwalker Ranch is going to be premiering. So we're going to be doing extra episodes to cover the Skinwalker Ranch show. We'll be bringing in friends from Skinwalker like Brandon Fugel, the Dragon, hopefully some other folks from the ranch to come hang out with us for the hour while we review every episode. So stay tuned for that. Again, Big Phone Home 3, I think we're going to be going in August, but again, I'll be releasing details on that soon. Thank you guys again, Michael Huntington. Thank you so much for the donation. Truly appreciate it. Thank you to every single one of my 10,000 subscribers. That's crazy. We're at 10 grand. That's insane, dude. We are, I think, officially the fastest growing UAP UFO channel in the world. I'm going to put
That's
that
almost
as
the size of my population of my hometown.
Yeah. It is the most minuscule thing possible, but we are incredibly proud of it. And yeah, it took a lot of work, a lot of time to get there. But man, huge achievement. Very proud. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Jane, Michael. Want to thank you, rather. Want to thank Aaron Desario. Want to thank Daniel Miller. And all the people that have just
all the guests, everyone,
the guests. Yeah, I mean, want to thank Leo Elizondo. Want to thank my girlfriend Michelle.
Michelle.
Don't forget her. Definitely want to thank Michelle. She's been a huge part of making sure this show looks better, sounds better. She had a huge hand in that. Want to thank Jazz Shaw, everybody, Ryan Sprague, all of the people who have really mentored me and helped me through this process. Amazing. Anyway, you guys, that's it. Thank you to Das Tapes. Thank you to all the super chats, all the questions. Thank you to Tim McMillan. If you guys want to check them out, all of their links are in the description below. You can check out Tim's article. You can check out Rather's channel, Rather Be Squidding. You can check out our Patreon, our merch store. So if you guys want to support us in that way, please sign up for Patreon. It is the absolute best way to support this show. If you can do it financially. Again, if you can't, no worries, no paywall. All the shows are free forever. So I hope you enjoy that. Other than that, thank you all so damn much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. 10,000 subscriber vacation edition. Wow, what a day. What a great show. Love you guys out there. Stay safe. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Unless, of course, something absolutely insane happens. We'll never put it out of the realm.
No.
But we'll see you in 2 weeks. We love you all very much. Until next time, peace.
News 12 Sports with Pat Murphy.
Great news regarding Bills tight end Kevin Everett. He moved his arms and legs today. And doctors now believe that's the wrong video, by the way. That is not the right video.
I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.